Now these are Emma's Chameleon Flakes, and I bought these myself to try them out.
Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's Wendy here from Toonpish Crafts, and I hope you're doing okay. Now, I don't know if you know, but Intoresin do the amazing crystal moulds. They have got a huge selection now of absolutely stunning crystal type moulds for resin, and I suppose for other things like candles as well. Don't quote me on that. But their crystal moulds are stunning. Now, they sent me a couple recently and I put my thinking cap on and I've played around with them and I think they're adorable. So let me show you what I've done with these gorgeous Intoresin moulds.
So these are the two moulds that Intoresin sent me. I do have a discount code for Intoresin, which is Wendy15, and that gives you 15% off at the checkout. The first one is a crystal butterfly, and it's very sweet. It's quite a small one, this one. And the second one is a turtle. Actually, it's not, it's a tortoise. I think it's a tortoise. But either way, it's absolutely stunning. They are both very, very sweet. They have an amazing high shine on them, and you can see them glistening in my light. So I'm going to be using Estoyo resin for this one. Again, I have a 15% off code for Estoyo, which is Toonpish, and will give you 15% off at the checkout. And I'm going to be using these Intoresin Starry Sky pigments. Now I'm only going to use a couple, 2 or 3 of them. And I think I'm going to start with the gold. These are UV resin pigments apparently, but I have put them in 2-part epoxy resin and I haven't had a problem with them at all. So I'm going to use the gold. Now I do shake the bottle well because the colours do separate in these bottles, so I had to shake them a lot. But I'm using the Estoyo 2-part epoxy resin and this Starry Sky gold. And I'm just going to do a simple pour into these 2 moulds. Now, as these 2 moulds do have a lot of crystal type areas, there's going to be a lot of places that can hold air pockets, i.e. surface bubbles. So I'm going to need to go over these moulds with some kind of implement to make sure all those air bubbles or air pockets are released and can flow upwards. So to start with, I'll get out a micro brush, but I decided that something more substantial would do a better job. So I'm using a silicone tool. And I'm just running the silicone tool over the base so that any potential stuck air can be released. This silicone tool is very pliable and it won't do the mould any damage at all, as it's really soft. With the butterfly, it has quite a large lip. Now for a tiny mould, this has quite an undercut, which is basically where the resin needs to go up under the lip and still be poured further up past the lip, if you catch my drift. However, it is entirely up to you how high you pour the resin. You don't have to pour it right to the top. I'm one of these people that don't like stopping before I get to the end, and I do like pouring the moulds completely to the top. Once I've completely filled these moulds up with resin, I'm going to go round the outside edge once more with a silicone tool just to get any stuck bubbles from the edges. And again, I do exactly the same with the butterfly. And I'm still not 100% convinced that I have done my best with this butterfly. So I do get out a little micro brush and I go round the inside lip and the undercut with a micro brush. And now you can see the colour. It's definitely gold and definitely mottled. And I'm just going to leave them to cure. The following day it's time to demold, and this is always the fun part, isn't it? And the first time in using any mould, you're not going to be 100% sure of what it is that you end up with. But wow, this little butterfly is adorable. Absolutely shimmering crystal glass type butterfly. I do like the fact that the pattern goes around the outside edges of the wings. And the tortoise is absolutely gorgeous. Now, I really love this, and I think it deserves to be done in different colours too. The crystal effect on these moulds is stunning. The light's bouncing all over the place because there's so many different angles for it to reflect from. So I decided to go with green. Yes, I know I don't like green, but sometimes I just have to bite the bullet and go for it. I can only bring myself to make one piece with this green, so it's going to be the tortoise. I'm pretty sure it's a tortoise. What do you think? I think turtles have flippers rather than feet, so yeah, it's got to be a tortoise, right? I guess it can be anything you want it to be, really. So I'm just going to do exactly the same with this green colour. Now, these starry sky colours are very subtle. In fact, it could have done with extra pigment in here on the green scale on top of it so that you could see the green properly, but that's in hindsight. I'm using a lolly stick here to get rid of the bubbles at the bottom. It has a rounded edge and I figured it would be fine. And I am being really gentle. I filled the mould up to the top, and this time I decided to lay a piece of ribbon across the back. This was very experimental. I knew the resin would soak into the ribbon, and I just wanted to see what would happen. Moving on to the butterfly, and I'm going to use the blue and the red. And I'm going to try and pour half of it blue and half red. Now, as I said, these colours are very subtle. They do have a different tint. You can see in these mixing cups, they are definitely different. And this is such a small amount of resin. Honestly, it's a few grams. So I didn't want to fill it up with too much colour because then it may not cure properly. But I'm just pouring it half and half. Again, I'm going to go around and get all those stuck bubbles out and do exactly the same as I did with the first one with the undercut. Try not to disperse the two colours too much. When I'm happy I've got rid of every bubble I can possibly get rid of, then I squirt it with isopropyl alcohol, and again I'm placing a little bit of ribbon on the back of this one. The following day, and I can see that the ribbon has taken hold, which is great. The resin did seep a little bit further than I would have liked, but it's still okay. You can bend ribbon even though it has resin cured in it. You can't really see those colours. I think the blue ribbon takes away from those two colours. However, they are definitely there. And I figured it would be really sweet to be able to tie this piece around something as a gift. I'm just using my arm as a demonstration now. With the tortoise, it looks greenish. The resin on the ribbon has gone a little bit further than I wanted. I think in future, if I was going to do this, I'd have to put a barrier around the ribbon, like a piece of hot glue or something, to stop the resin going any further. But that's a work in progress. So I decided to make one more for this video, and this one I wanted to be a lot brighter. So I'm going to use different things to colour this. I'm going to fill these two moulds up with clear resin. Not completely to the top, about 3/4 of the way. Again, doing all the steps to get rid of the bubbles. And I let them cure for about 4 hours, so they were still tacky. Now these are Emma's Chameleon Flakes, and I bought these myself to try them out. I haven't used Emma's Flakes before. As you know, I sell the tiny turners, that's Emma, her chameleon powders and ethereal powders on my website. I'm her authorised distributor. And I figured I would try her flakes as I hadn't done previously. After this video, I then talked to Emma and decided that I would sell her flakes as well. Now they are high quality and they are at the high end of the market. I'm not going to tell you they're cheap because they're not. But I'm hoping that Emma's quality has come through on these, and I wanted to find out for myself. And although I hadn't used them before, you can see how bright they are just from the containers. I decided to use the dragon colour. And as the resin is still tacky, it should be okay to hold the flakes in place. My first impression of the colour was, wow, it looks stunning. It looks so mottled and blue, purple, green, all sorts in there. Fascinating to me. Now these are the colours that I would expect to find in a dragon, unless it was a red one, of course. So I'm just using a little paintbrush and I'm covering the tacky resin with the flakes, spreading them out and burnishing them onto the resin. Now, as usual with anything that Emma makes, you need very little to get the coverage that you want. And these flakes are extremely soft. It's hard to describe, but they go so far. I've hardly used any for the back of this piece, and it's covered really well. Although they're static, they were controllable. I'm making sure I'm going right the way around the edges as well, getting the flakes into all those little nooks and crannies around the edges. I blow the excess away, and now, although it looks as if some parts have no colour, you turn it a different way and it is full of colour. And I'm happy with that coverage. I think we're going to do okay with that. Finally, the butterfly, and I'm going to use one of Emma's chameleon pigments in Poison. This is one of my favourite colours. I love this colour. And as usual with Emma's pigments, you need hardly any. This resin, remember, is tacky, so it's going to hold any powder that I put on it. And I'm making sure those undercuts are well and truly covered. But look how little of powder you need. And this is a beautiful pinkish purple colour. Once I'm happy with the coverage, I blow the excess off. And again, if you twist it one way, it looks like there's no powder on there. Twist it another and it is fully covered. That has enough colour in it to make me happy. Now to finish these pieces off, and for quickness, I'm going to use black polyurethane resin, and this is from I Love Mixed Media here in the UK, and her link will be in the description box below. You don't have to use polyurethane resin. You could use 2-part epoxy resin. You could use really thin UV resin. I'm making sure I pour the 2 parts exactly the same on this. You only get 30 seconds to stir it before you pour it, and it cures within 40 minutes. So if you're tight for time, it's definitely an option for you. It is a little stressful, I'm not going to deny that, especially when you're me and you're worried about knocking things over and making a mess, which I do on a regular occurrence. I've speeded this part up because obviously you don't want to see me stirring for 30 seconds, but it was quick. It is quite thin stuff as well. It will run into all those little areas, and I made far too much. But I didn't waste it. I poured it into something I had to the other side. And I did quickly go round that lip to try and get out any bubbles, and then I let it cure. The following day the resin had cured up, so now I could demold. I was so excited to see these, and that butterfly is wow. Those colours from Emma are stunning. Look at those different colours dancing around everywhere. I think those colours have done that piece justice. The tortoise, however, was the one I was waiting for. That blew my mind. I could not believe how many colours I was seeing in one piece. Purple, blue, pink, turquoise. They're all there. It is magnificent. I can't describe it any other way, really. That's when I knew I had to sell Emma's Flakes on my store as well. And I'm really looking forward to using these again. The tortoise with the ribbon made a really nice bow on a bunch of flowers I was giving to a friend. And I absolutely love this mould. I love them both, but the tortoise is my favourite. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I hope you've got something out of it. Come back and see me next week, because you never know what I'm going to be up to. I never know what I'm going to be up to. Have a great week, happy crafting, and bye for now.